Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 68 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful and warm confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check us out as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Substack. This episode number 68, guys, I do apologize because if you kind of check the chronological order, you kind of notice it kind of jumped around. I actually started on this episode but didn't finish. I do apologize for that. But as you know, it's always hard-hitting content that I'm delivering to you, hard-hitting facts and information. So definitely glad to be here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, bringing it to you. Currently, getting reviews and doing information, taking up information more or less on the Florida State Seminoles and Georgia Tech game going on in Ireland right now. That game's tied up currently at halftime, 14-14. Also, we're going to be doing a review on some of the guys on the bubble for the Eagles, roster cuts, some of the additions they may make, more or less. That game currently right now, Vikings are up 7-0. So, staying jam-packed this weekend, y'all. Staying this jam-packed. College football week 0 starting. End of the NFL preseason. Definitely got the preseason battle going on. A lot of things to touch on. But we're going to get into it right now. Like I said, I also, for week 3, I also have a video coming out reviewing the performances of some of the rookies that played, how they did and, how we could expect them to fare going into the season. So we'll have that coming. Like I said, a bunch of content. Football season, y'all, it's here. This is what we were talking about all off season. This is what we were prognosticating about and wishing and hoping for, and like I said, it's finally here. So we'll hop right into it. This episode, like I said, episode 68 is a kind of a continuation of an episode that I started, but now I'm kind of like finishing up. So the beginning of this episode, I wanted to touch on Hassan Reddick. Now, you guys have heard me reference in other episodes that Hassan Reddick has had a contractual issue going on with the New York Jets, that the New York Jets pretty much have kind of stalled him, for lack of better words. They're stalling him, and they're not giving him a new contract. Now, in fairness, there has not been any reports or any indications that the Jets promised him a new contract, promised him a new deal. There was nothing like that to speak of. However, with that being said, Hassan Reddick expected a new contract when he got traded from Philadelphia. Draft compensation was given away in this trade. And now Hassan Reddick is not showing up, and he has been a complete holdout, and it doesn't look like he's going to show up. That all being said and, factually spoken for, we all know Matt Judon just got traded from the Patriots. Similar situation. Guy looking for a pay increase. Similar age. Similar production. Basically, Matt Judon got traded to the Falcons. So I'm curious to see what does this move of Matt Judon going to the Falcons. And he was traded for a 3rd-round pick. So giving up something for Hassan Reddick when you got a guy who's had double-digit sacks. 2 years ago he had 16, 17 sacks. He had 11 last year. You got a guy that's going to get you sacks. So it's very interesting to see if any team will jump out there at this point right now, at the end of the preseason, right before the regular season starts, see if they try to offer up something for him. Because I definitely think that Hassan Reddick could definitely warrant that type of acquisition or warrant that type of trade favor. Because in all honesty, just because the scheme was changing in Philadelphia and the pay, that's why he's not there anymore. Yeah, he could have worked at Vic Fangio's system, but in all honesty, the scheme fit wasn't a thing, and they weren't going to pay him that type of money at the age of production that he's at. But there are a lot of teams that are in need of pass rushers that could use a guy like this, Jets included. But if you're not going to pay him, I can completely understand where Hassan Reddick is coming from. Why the fuck am I here if I'm not getting paid? So very interesting to see where Hassan Reddick may go. I'm not sure yet. I'll definitely keep an eye on this, guys, because I definitely don't think he's going to play it down for the Jets this year. I think if we're to put, if you were to give me sodium pentothal right now, you would have asked me, a week out, I think he'll buckle and cave and play because nobody's going to miss out on that money. However, I just don't think he's going to play a full season for the New York Jets this year. Especially with the fact that he wants the contract. They're not willing to give it to him. They want him to play on the current deal that he's playing on. That wasn't even tenable in Philadelphia, and he was happier in Philadelphia. He was closer to home. So, who knows? But very interesting to see. Next thing I wanted to touch on was some news from the Minnesota Vikings, who, again, have just had the roughest damn offseason. If there's any team who has needed like the empathy pillow or sympathy from people, it's been the Minnesota Vikings. We've talked about Kyrie Jackson's unfortunate death and tragic and horrific death in that car accident in top of July. We've talked about the multitude of injuries they've suffered. They signed Stephon Gilmore. They brought him in, make Fabian Moreau, making additions to the cornerback position, trying to strengthen that room with the injuries they've suffered. However, J.J. McCarthy, after playing impressive in the beginning of the preseason, showing some promise, showing the team that he can do something, he's out now. He's out. After that game with the Raiders, it seemed like there was some knee discomfort. I'll be honest with you. I watched that whole game. I can't tell you where or when it happened, but it happened. And apparently he had a torn meniscus, so he is out for the season. They've placed him on IR already, and it kind of sucks. But I kind of felt like they wanted this anyway. It kind of felt like this was going to be a redshirt year for J.J. McCarthy. They really wanted to see what they had in Sam Darnold. And if Sam Darnold didn't fit the bill or cut, butter or slice, bread or whatever fucking adjective you want to use, if he didn't do what was required of him, then J.J. McCarthy might have been warranted. But again, you have Nick Mullins, garbage. But again, you have a veteran quarterback. You have Jared Hall. Don't really know much of what you got out of him. So I get it why there wasn't really an urge or a yearning to kind of push him into the fire yet. Though, nonetheless, the torn meniscus, him being out for the year, I was a little anxious to see him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and see how that offense with T.J. Hockenson had moved and flowed with him at quarterback. So it sucks, but getting ready for next year anyway. So next year is going to be a very, very trying year for J.J. McCarthy, especially coming back from an injury. A lot to prove. Lots will be on the line, but just sucks to see a young guy suffer an injury like that. And ultimately, we're going to see what this means for Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold now is time to piss and get off the pot, because we've been hearing a lot. You got Chris Sims singing his blues, singing his praises on Pro Football Talk. And you got guys out there saying, you played well in San Francisco. It was Carolina, it was the Jets. And I believe some of that is definitely factual. However, now it's time. Now it is time. He is definitely going to have to show and prove. He's definitely going to have to show that he could definitely be the quarterback that they think he can be. Because if he cannot be that quarterback, then all of this is null and void, and they're going to need J.J. McCarthy in there faster than they could actually possibly have fathomed. Going a step further, we're going to take our way down to Kansas City to go visit the Chiefs. And something that I didn't touch on, I do apologize. I don't know how I missed this. I wrote it down, but didn't touch on it. Wide receiver Hollywood Brown suffering injury with the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, getting injured. He's still been out. He was marked to be missing several weeks. He's still within that recovery timeline with a shoulder injury. This is a big injury. This is a big deal for them. You don't really know what's going on with the Rashee Rice situation. You like what you see from Xavier Worthy, but young receivers still got to show and prove. I do think that the young guys are going to have to step up. You kind of got the Justin Watsons out there. Some of the guys are going to have to kind of help fortify the passing game. And obviously you got Travis Kelce. But nonetheless, I think after last year, this team will be able to deal with it. The question will be, defensively, are they still the same? And offensively, can the offensive line sustain? Because I think, especially we get Creed Humphreys, got to give him a shout out, getting his extension, huge deal, him getting paid. This team looks primed to compete again in the AFC. But if you're looking at little things, offensive line injuries, wide receiver influx, that whole situation being in flux, Hollywood Brown being injured, not knowing what's going to happen with Rashee Rice, hoping Xavier Worthy is, going to be the guy that they hope and need him to be. Just a lot of questions, and none of them yet to be answered. But in all honesty, if we're talking about the Chiefs, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, we're talking about Andy Reid, they're more than likely these guys are going to figure it out and put it together. It's just more of a question of, is this going to impact the receiving core? I tend to think it will to a degree, but we'll see. Chiefs typically don't really start out, like gangbusters anyway. It does take them a little bit. They go through a lull in the middle of the season, and then they still wind up winning the damn Super Bowl. So, if this guy shows up and even plays for them, great. Who knows? Who knows if he'll even have to be a factor? But I think he is expected to be a factor, and he is expected to be productive. So, big injury, but wait and see how he recovers and how he responds after that recovery time from the shoulder injury. This next one was kind of perplexing. I thought it was spam mail when I read it. I checked The Athletic, I checked Pro Football Talk, and I checked a couple of other websites several weeks ago, and it is factual. I was just dumbfounded to see that it still fucking exists. Colin Kaepernick, y'all, the much maligned Colin Kaepernick, who ultimately for just taking a knee and taking a stand against, police brutality in America, was blackballed and pretty much vilified and, ostracized out of the NFL. He has still expressed pleasures and wants and needs to play in the NFL. Now, this comes off the fact that Jim Harbaugh said he's offered him a coaching job there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Here's my thing, right? I appreciate the fact that Colin Kaepernick still wants to play. Doesn't somebody around him kind of know, like, that's great that you still want to play, but being that you sue the league and they settle with you, they're never going to let you back in. You proved your point. You made enough of a fuss where it cost them money and it cost them loss of sleep and time and lawyers and court fees. They're never going to allow you back in the NFL as far as a player. Now, maybe as a coach, yeah, maybe you can get in with John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh, and you can do that and things will work out for you. But Cap, you're not going to be a quarterback ever again. Not a starting NFL quarterback. You're not even going to be a backup. You have not even been given the chance to really, like, in full disclosure, he's had opportunities to come and be a backup within the past couple of years. He thought he was a starter. He hadn't played like a starter before he left the league, but, or should I say ostracized out of the league. He didn't play like a quality starter, but nonetheless, he feels that he was. You should have took those opportunities and proved that you could still play. Nonetheless, you're still wanting a job. You should have took up the coaching job with Harbaugh. You're not getting a quarterback position. I mean, they're not. It's futile for this conversation to even still be a talking point at any point. I feel for Colin Kaepernick. I really do. As a black man in this country, I empathize with what he was doing. I see his struggle. I see what he was trying to do. However, he made himself a lightning rod. He made himself a figure. And the moment he settled with the NFL and the moment he took that money and agreed to that settlement, he had to know that his football career was done at that point. So, speaking of quarterbacks, much maligned lightning rod figures, this one a lot less controversial, but still controversial nonetheless. Jimmy Garoppolo. And I want to make sure that I highlight this because this comment kind of got missed. It was something that was kind of thrown in the middle of training camp, in the beginning of the dog days of camp, and it didn't really get touched on, but I want to make sure I touched on it. Jimmy Garoppolo, who we all know is backup quarterback now for the Los Angeles Rams, who is serving a suspension due to PED use from the past season. Jimmy Garoppolo, interestingly enough, while speaking to reporters a few weeks ago, roughly 2 weeks ago to be exact, took this time at the moment to throw some shade at his former organization, the San Francisco 49ers, and wanted to more or less give a shout out to the Rams and their practice habits and philosophy, stating that he could really feel like himself here. Loosely veiled, references to Kyle Shanahan's philosophy and John Lynch's philosophy and how they run the team. And, Jimmy Garoppolo ultimately feels like he's free and, he no longer has to be, muzzled up or feel like he's in a hostage situation. I completely understand. I empathize. To a degree, he has a right to pop shit. He was pretty much granted the Golden Boy when he was traded from New England to San Francisco. Kyle and John Lynch gave him the bag. He suffered that horrific knee injury. I believe it was against Kansas City, if I'm correct. I want to say that was 2016. I want to say it was 2016. He suffered that knee injury against Kansas City, running up the sidelines. Knee went out, should have went out of bounds in the first damn place, but was trying to still get more yards. Whatever. And then nonetheless, he gets injured. And he comes back. He gets into the Super Bowl. He fucked up on the throw to Emmanuel Sanders. And from then on, it was kind of like, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. And I agree. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a good quarterback. There's definitely guys out there better than Garoppolo. However, what I find coincidentally is that as garbage as he was, he always seemed to, however, get Kyle Shanahan to an NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl in that offense. which more or less speaks to the system and not the quarterback. That being said, you ain't really been shit, Jimmy G, since you left San Fran. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's system made you, bro. I mean, you really have not done anything. I mean, of substance. Like, you suck as a quarterback. I mean, Josh McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan are the only idiots that paid you starting quarterback money. No one else with a brain was going to do that. I mean, my God. I mean, and then to add insult to injury, he's talking shit while suffering and sustaining a PED suspension. And they got Stetson Bennett. And I don't know if you guys have been following the Rams preseason games. If you haven't, cool. I do this for a living, so I do. Whatever. Point being, I've watched Stetson Bennett play. He's better than Jimmy Garoppolo now. So I highly doubt Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to play. So it's great and convenient that he's able to talk shit from the sidelines and talk about how ineffective the philosophy or the practice habits are. I got good news and I got bad news for you, Jimmy. You've gotten paid a lot of money from the San Francisco 49ers, and you've made a lot of money from the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. I got bad news for you. Your starting quarterback days are over. Collect the check and shut the fuck up, bro. No one cares. Nonetheless, hopping into our next topic, I want to wrap this episode up with something that I thought was near and dear and special. Something from earlier in the week. I feel like I would just be remiss if I didn't touch on it, but it's something that deals with, it's kind of multifaceted, and multi-layered issue. And the name of this issue, and I coined this one, Salty Tua Strikes. Yes, Tua Tagovailoa, y'all. Yes, he strikes. Yes, he did. This obviously is interview and his comments are via the Dan Le Batard podcast. I thought it was funny. I thought it was, when I seen it on YouTube myself, I kind of thought it was a joke. I didn't really think it was real. And then when I watched the video myself, I was kind of taken a bit back. Not shocked because, I've played Little League football, played high school football. Wasn't really shocked and taken aback by what he said. However, it was dope that Tua finally spoke out and spoke on the relationship that him and Brian Flores had. It's been well documented, well rumored, I should say. Now it's finally truth and facts to the rumor. And he spoke on how unhappy he was and how McDaniel, the coach now for the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel has been a breath of fresh air for him, and he believes in him. And, he's not telling him that he sucks every day and that he could play football. And, and all of this is great. All of this is dope. I don't want anybody in any way, shape, or form to think that Tua speaking up for himself is wrong. He should have spoke up for himself. I think that Tua definitely at times is too reserved. I think sometimes he's a little too stoic, and that'll cause him to just kind of like, fuck it, I'll get to it at another point. You know what? It's not really important. I'll really just focus on the team. And that's great, because as a leader, you need that. You have to be able to compartmentalize sometimes and be able to withstand the shit that's being thrown at you regardless of what's going on, because you got to focus. However, though, this topic's been out there for 3 years. And it just seemed convenient that as soon as he got the bag from Miami, he started talking shit. I could be wrong. He was asked the question. But it just seems convenient that Tua, who pre-contract never answered this question, now post-big contract has answered this question poignantly, candidly, and bluntly. I mean, he did everything shy of pretty much saying that Brian Flores is a horrible person or a fucked up individual. He said everything shy of those exact words. To me, and I kind of get it because, Flores, he comes from that Bill Belichick school of thought. I've heard Chris Sims speak about this on Pro Football Talk. I've heard other guys on different podcasts and different shows talk about how Flores is from Brooklyn, New York. And, and I have people from New York, I have friends and family, some people I love that are from New York. And I know, like, you come from Brooklyn, that's naturally a no-nonsense attitude, I don't take no shit, demeanor. So I completely understand that. The moral, more or less, of the story is Brian Flores, I love how he handled it. He took ownership of it. He didn't run from it. He admitted that he should have coached him better, that there's a way that he could have coached better. And I think that it's dope that he's had camaraderie from his guys with the Vikings and guys with the Dolphins that, kind of stood with them. Nonetheless, Brian Flores took from this, I learned from it, and I have to do a better job. My biggest takeaway from it, Tua is fucking soft. Tua is soft. And it's convenient to me that you say this after you get your money. You didn't say this at any point. At any point when it was questionable if you were a starter or not, or when you were going through concussion protocol. Because McDaniels is just not now your coach. It's not like he just became your head coach. He's been your head coach now for a couple years. So it's just funny to me that all of this is coming out. Again, shout out to Brian Flores for handling it. Shout out to Tua for speaking up, but you should have spoke up a lot sooner. This was already kind of known, and being that Brian Flores kind of got, shit going on with the league where, he's already suing them for, racial issues where it seems like they've discriminated against black head coaches, and he's on the forefront of that. He's a defensive coordinator now with Minnesota, and he's trying to help fortify that defense and help Kevin O'Connell, stabilize that team. It's a guy that's really trying to make it. And I think people do make mistakes. I mean, like I said, when I played football, and granted, different than the pros, but even when I played football, you knew you had coaches, they coached hard. I've had teachers and mentors in other aspects of life and work that coach and teach hard. And if you don't really know how to take to it, it could break you down. And that is part of coaching. You do have to know how to deal with everybody accordingly. That being said, though, Tua, you doing the talking. You better show up. See all those numbers, passing yards, completion percentage, that shit looks sweet. Win some playoff games. Because I can tell you now, Brian Flores was a decent coach. You got a coach now that's helped you win some games. You haven't done shit when it's counted. And you already have the bag. So keep in mind, you don't do anything after making these comments, people will be coming for you. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I thank you as always. Again, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Substack. Like I said, I have another episode coming up for you soon. This weekend is jam-packed. Like I said, definitely check out as many of the games you possibly can in between your work schedule, wherever you guys may be. Love you guys as always. Thank you. Take care and enjoy the weekend.